Welcome to Business Growth Talks, and today we have Kyle Mealy, who is a founder and CEO of Next Level Revenue, where he helps small businesses, B2B businesses between 1 million and 10 million achieve predictable, profitable growth through fractional Chief Revenue Officer services. With a track record of scaling businesses and optimizing revenue strategies, Kyle is an expert and from various roles as a COO, CEO, CRO across startups and established businesses. He scaled a martial arts school from 500K to 1 million. He led a digital marketing agency from 3 million to 7 million. And he has increased sales efficiency by 500% while reducing costs for the client. He is also a speaker and a teacher, and Carl's energizes business leaders to challenge the status quo. Just a quick one. I just wanted to say thank you very much for joining me today and being with me on this show. One thing that is really, really important I want to share with you is this show is growing really well, and I'm so proud of it, and I'm so pleased that you're enjoying this content. But if you could please hit the follow and subscribe to this channel, it will really help the channel on its being able to grow and the people that we can have on this show. So please do consider, if you have a moment, please can you hit the subscribe button and the follow button, and I would really appreciate it. Hello, Carl. How are you
Well,
today?
I am wonderful. That intro sounds really good. I hope so.
Is it someone you recognize?
Sometimes I hope to live up to it. So I'll bring everything I can to bear. So I'm excited to talk with you, Mark.
Thank you, Carl. Thank you so much for your time. As in all of my starting off my interviews, the first question always is, what does a business mindset mean to you?
Oh, it's a good question. Yeah, I'm not a traditional business person, so I think maybe I'll have a different take. But I think a business mindset is growth oriented and abundance minded. I think those are it. So I'm gonna give more than I get. It's selfishly selfless because I've always known that when I give more, I get much more back. So that's the abundance mindset. And then the growth oriented is it's internal locus of control. I control my own destiny, and usually the things that are in my way are my own stuff and my own beliefs. So I'm constantly trying to challenge and grow.
And so that idea of abundance versus scarcity, how have you managed? Because you must have had difficult times, whether it's with the business or personally around that. How have you managed to keep that idea of abundance mentality even in the harder times?
Oh, that's a good question too. I'll tell you an interesting story about starting the business. So I was never supposed to start a business. I was never supposed to be an entrepreneur. I love my father dearly. He is an incredible human. And his whole mantra was you get a good job, you get good benefits, you take care of the family. You don't live to work, you work to live. And so he punched in, punched out, took care of his family, and that's what the world was for me. And I started to do that, and I was just bored. I was mad bored. And so I went down this entrepreneurial path, and I had been really successful with a bunch of different businesses, a bunch of different, and I'll maybe tell that story later of my life to starting this business. But what I was at a point in my career where I could no longer go further by hoping someone else would take me there, if that makes sense. And
Yes.
so I was in a scarcity mindset of believing that I always needed a different business, like I needed to be part of a business, and that's that like safety valve. And my wife knew I was frustrated, had seen me get frustrated and want to go further. And I'm like, honey, we can't. There's no way. We have a mortgage. We have 2 kids. We can't just go trust this thing and that money will come. And so that was probably the bottom of my fear of scarcity. And she goes to me, and my wife is very practical, very conservative. And she goes, I've watched you. I've seen you. No matter where you go, what you do, money follows. And if there's anybody I trust to take care of our family and provide for us, it is quite literally you. And I'm not just saying that. So go. And I did. And I just believed is maybe the best part. Is I borrowed her confidence and ran. And yeah, I was full within about 60 days, and we were making more money than we had ever made.
Amazing. Amazing. What a great
So
story. Yes,
it was tough.
it's
It was tough. It was a year of pain to get to that moment. And then guess what? The world opened. So
the world opens. Amazing. Tell me one thing about your upbringing which reflects on who you are today.
probably have to talk about being an only child.
Okay.
Now, only children, all of you out there, we speak a different language than people with siblings because you sometimes get brought into the room as an adult. Like you get more treated like an adult than a kid. And you're left to your own devices a lot more often, is my experience. Again, I don't know if that's everybody's experiences. So you have to figure stuff out on your own. You have to be able to entertain yourself. There's no thought partner usually or partner in crime. And again, you're treated like an adult more often. So like I went to dinner with my family and I ordered my own food. It wasn't just, mom and dad ordering for the kids. And because of that, I think I had a head start in just taking care of myself and being responsible and doing my own thing. And those really lend a hand to taking accountability and taking ownership on in the business world. And so I think that's where I thrived is I didn't always need a partner. I just could just go run. And I think that is when we think about business mindset, it's that just proactive. Who else is going to do it? I didn't have a brother to blame when things went wrong, and I didn't have a sister to annoy, so it was always me. So I'm just wired to go figure it out myself.
So one of the businesses that you were working in was a martial arts school that you helped grow. How did you get into that business and how were you able to grow that?
Oh, if it's okay, I'll go backwards a little bit because I do think
Sure.
it's relevant. I guess I still do it, but I had done martial arts for all of my life. I started when I was 5. It was my 6th birthday present, and I earned my black belt when I was 9. And in the cusp of 10. So technically it was my 10th birthday I got it. And I had continued doing martial arts most of my life, and I even did it into my adult life. And lo and behold, I'm graduating from college. My father had said, "You got to get a good job." So I got a good job. I was a lab manager out of college,
Yep, I
which
saw.
was an
Yep.
interesting experience to be sure. I was suddenly the number 3 at a facility of 15 employees, so I was third highest rank. I had blue collar workers who would come in and need to do lab work with me. They would do sampling. And the person who is the next oldest, I was like 23, was 46, double my age.
Wow.
Everybody else was 46 and older, and I'm the young college kid who now has sub managerial responsibility. Talk about a recipe for a fast learning environment. Luckily, again, I think I was an only child, so I only knew how to just go, and I was oriented towards maturity. I'm not that mature, but I knew how to grow up, pretend I was mature. And I inherited this lab that was functional. And I really just started to look at the processes and the systems and just how things were done, and I had to figure out how to do them better because it was really important that the lab had quality data protected, the cost to the city, dangers to the equipment, just all there was a lot of good reasons to do it right. And I like doing things right. And so I noticed we needed to improve process, we needed to improve systems. I needed to be a good leader to these people who are older than me because suddenly I was, in charge, and I rewrote the processes. I made them more approachable. I rewrote how we did things. I got a better data mapping system. I had better control of our inventory and our materials. And like along that way, I had actually started teaching at my old karate instructor's karate school in a couple towns over. And he was trying to pull me in and get me more involved because I'm good at teaching. And I obviously had done martial arts for a long time. And he obviously learned a little bit of my work. And I think he started to realize that I had a deep understanding of process and a deep understanding of data and systems, which was, I think he knew inherently there was a gap in what he was doing. And I had won Lab of the Year in my second year, which is the highest honor you can achieve in this little lab world. And my boss had come to me and goes, "Kyle, if you keep doing what you're doing in 10 years, you can take my job." And I died. Like I just remember my heart breaking. Like I've optimized this about as good as I can get it. It's not that I'm an ego-y and not wanting to be better, but it's like the marginal gain for a 10-year cost is too much. So At that point, the karate school owner had said, "Hey, you come do this." And I'm like, okay. My dad thought I was a complete idiot because I did a 4-hour PowerPoint presentation to my parents to convince them this was a good idea. And yeah, so I started in entrepreneurial land, no health insurance. I was making about the same. And I rolled in on day one going, so what are we going to do? He said, I don't really know. Let's go figure it out. And he was barely breaking even with adding me as payroll. I think I was the second full-time employee he added. And about 6 months into our work, the year had ended, and he showed his P&L and he said, hey, we broke even this year. In fact, we're going to probably lose money in January. And at that point, I really realized what he was risking to involve me. Up until then, I worked for a city. There's always enough money in a city. You don't ever worry about P&Ls. That's just, and I'm like, I'm not going to let this person who took a risk on me lose out because I don't understand this. And so I accelerated at warp speed. That's when I really got good at marketing and sales, actually. That's when I applied the data, like the analytical side of work that I did at the lab, because that was where the truth was. Like I could always tell where we are. And I just applied the data methodologies, the quality assurance, quality control, and the forecasting into business. And very quickly, turns out when you focus on the right things, you grow really fast. And so we grew really fast. We were one of the first 3 martial arts schools in the entire country, as far as we know. This is not a big world of that level of a martial arts school to hit $1 million in revenue out of a single location.
And how did that shape your approach to next level?
So that's actually where I fell in love with marketing and sales, because that's what I started to really realize was the driver of all the other things. Now, I spent most of my energy cleaning up operations, building playbooks, methodologies, because you could only have so many people teaching karate. If I taught all the classes, I couldn't do any marketing and sales. If I taught all the classes, I couldn't do any training. I had to work my way out of teaching so I could do more marketing and sales, which drove the economic engine. And so that's where I fell in love with this idea of revenue and profitability, because those are the only 2 things that mattered to us. What do you think our meeting started with and ended with? What's our top line? What's our bottom line? All the other stuff is just issues to solve. And so I think that's where it really started. And I'll never forget the year we were going to hit $1 million. I'd really gotten the modeling down to, I knew for every call that came in, how many people would walk through our front door, how many people would start a trial with us, how many people would sign up full time, would they pay for program 1 or program 2, and how long they would last. And because of that, I could actually build a formula and an Excel spreadsheet based on our events from the last year. And I modeled out and I said, we're going to make $1,030,000. And we joked about the 30,000, and it's like, why do we want to do 1,030,000? And we laughed. It's because the credit card takes 3%. And so if you take that off, $1 million goes to the bank. So that was our goal. And we hit 1,033,000 that year. And that's when I really realized I had figured like it is a math game. That's when it became, it's just math. It's
so talk us through that formula, because I'm fascinated, because lots of these influencers, these people that come up with these formulas on how to be able to grow a business. But what was your formula that you were able to create?
So this is funny because most of podcasts, most of the things you could learn, and I was consuming everything I could because it wasn't like I had anybody and we didn't have any budget for personal development. I just had to figure it out. I used the lab, and it's like data was always the source of truth. And most people talk about tactics and they want strategies. And those are all bullcrap if you don't know your numbers. It's truly all bullcrap. It's guessing. And I don't guess because I'm a terrible guesser. Just ask my wife. When I think about metrics, I start to get really grounded in reality and numbers. And so the formula started to become very simple. And I call it Revenue Cascade now. That's the intellectual property we've brought to the world. I call it Revenue Cascade. And if you think about marketing as a funnel, which most people can envision, and you think about sales like a pipeline, it's illustrated in most CRMs as left to right moving. I really realized, and I didn't have the language for this when I was at the karate school, that they needed to be stacked. I watched the World Cup in the famous South African one with the vuvuzelas. And so that kind of is what my head had, is you've got this funnel at the top and the skinny thing coming down. And if you can understand how many people touch your brand as far away from your work as you can, and you measure every interaction between them and your front door, and then every interaction from their front door all the way to the time they sign in the dotted line or the credit card is swiped, whatever, you can start to see where things are stuck. You can start to see kinks in the hose. You can start to see, I call it like an MRI, right? You can see the blockages, right? Lots of layers, lots of little cuts. And so at the karate school, we started with, okay, we want to hit a million. How much do we need to do in December? We need to have 400 students paying their monthly recurring subscription. We need to add 20 students. Okay, how do you add 20 students paying 50% paying in full, 50% paying over time? Okay, those are just numbers. I know what the value is for full. I know what the value is for their monthly subscription. I have last year's data so I can stack on top and build from there. And where do the students come from? You start to look at all the different, this is where the fancy word of channels comes in. So if we run a birthday party, we tend to get one or two people interested. Well, if I can get them through the front door and I have that show up rate, I know I'm going to 90% likely get them on a trial. If I get them on a trial, I know it was like mathematically beautiful. It was like 49.7% of the time they would sign up for a full program. And I knew they would stay for a long time and long enough to count for this year's revenue. And you just keep working back. It's okay, we need 27 birthday parties next year. Okay, well, December's rough for birthday parties, so let's not put many in there. And November's kind of rough, and summer's kind of rough, but spring is great. Let's be heavy in our birthday parties. Well, what events did we do last year? How many did we get from them? Okay, let's go look at all those. Okay, what did we get from the website? Great. How many did we get from those? And you just work your way backwards, and then you can really start to look at, okay, what events do we have to add? Because what we did last year probably isn't going to get us to our next year's goal. So where are the 4 or 5 key intersections where we're short on marketing, what is considered marketing? And that shapes everything. And then you're
Yeah.
on track or off track. That's the best part. And
Yeah.
so like we were off track. So it was like, okay, instead of birthday parties, we're going to give away a whole boatload of free pizza parties. We'll eat the cost of them because we need the students.
It's fascinating. And I think you're absolutely right. Working backwards from where you want to be in 12 months' time and then
Mhm.
breaking it down into how you're going to achieve that, I think is a great lesson learned. And hopefully my audience will learn from that because it's a very important when you're trying to forecast where you want to be, and then you either hit the number or you don't hit the number. And there can be lessons learned from why you didn't hit the number versus when you do hit the numbers. We will
Well,
come
and
into that.
here's an interesting point, and I run into this in a lot of leadership teams, is they actually start by throwing a random number up against the wall, saying, wouldn't it be nice? Now, nobody ever says, wouldn't it be nice? They'd be like, we should hit, or we have, it's all, and it's, frankly, it's bullcrap. There's very rarely any rhyme or reason to that number. And so what I usually do with those teams is, what did we do last year? Okay. We're in the World Series if we hit 30% growth. Like we're champions of our league. So if your number is 30 more than 30% higher and you're not doing some categorical holistic change to your business, you're outside of your mind. You're not in
Mm.
reality. And so I think a lot of people start with a crazy number. And then your whole year is off track. And that just think about the morale kill, the like inability to escape like that impending doom. And then you switch it and you lose trust with your team because we had to switch it. What does that tell you? They can't trust your forecasting. I'm hyper conservative when it comes to that, but it also means we're much more successful. And it's not because I want to sell short of goals. Like my businesses, the clients I work with tend to average in that 20 to 35% growth, but it's because we do the math. And most
Yeah.
people don't have the discipline to do the math.
Right. So you've talked about your role as a CRO, a Chief Revenue Officer. You've talked about your experience of previous businesses that you've done. But what was
Mhm.
the inspiration for setting up Next Level?
And it's kind of part of this story, and there's a very you can see there's a trend line through it. So we had 2 locations. We're both the owner and I mean at the karate school, he went from making 60,000 a year, working 60 hours to multiple 6 digits, working 6 hours. Like life was good. Life had gotten real good. And I was making a very good income. I was very healthy. We had 2 locations. It was good. Everything was good. But I wanted to grow. I wanted to grow faster. I'm like, I know the economic engine. We can do this thing. And I think he had achieved what he had wanted to achieve. And we were misaligned in our vision. And he
Okay.
had been brought in and goes, hey, in 10 years, you can take over the business. It's not going to work for me. I'm not going to do the same thing for 10 years.
Yeah.
And so I went to my network and ran into a digital marketing agency, and I'd fallen in love with marketing. And I had a kind of an existential crisis. I was early 30s. My second kid was on the way. And I looked at my wife and I go, I can easily wear the pajamas and barefoot and run around and be called sir for the next 10 years, but we're done. Like the amount of vacations we're having now is capped because we're not growing the schools. Our retirement timeline is capped because we're not going to grow the schools. Are we cool with this life? And I wasn't, my wife and I weren't. There was no prospect for growth, and that's not me. And so I had to like really do this tough thing of I have nothing on my resume. I was a lab manager and then a karate guy, and I'm in my 30s. That's not like I'm not getting into an executive job with that as my Rolodex or my resume. So luckily, I had really good connections and really good mentors to the karate school. It turns out that the karate school is in a really good spot to be. A lot of the CEOs and executives in the area took their kids there, and they had seen a spark in me and taken me under their wing. And so when I said, hey, I'm ready for my next challenge, I had lots of opportunity. So into this digital marketing agency thinking, oh, I'm going to be a professional now. I'm going to wear the button up. Ooh, and I'm like, I got my quarter zip. Like I never had a quarter
Yeah.
zip my whole life.
Yeah.
And I stepped in. I was the marketing and sales person. I was one of their first real hires in this realm. They were at 3 million. Come to find out they were stuck at 3 million. And I just did what I do. I was doing my only child thing. I'm like, run hard, run fast, figure it out. Ain't nobody's going to tell me where to go and what to do. That's not my job. It's my job is get it done. And we grew really fast. We started to grow really fast. And I matured in the professional setting. I always think of that time really important because I didn't know business language. That's when I started my LinkedIn. So I'm like 15 years behind most professionals. I don't have a true pure marketing or sales background. I have a degree in GSD. I just get stuff done. And as I was learning and growing, I was seeing all these marketing programs and all these sales programs of our clients and hearing what the business owners were frustrated about. And most business owners really only care about 2 things: revenue and leads. I know they also care about profit because it was always about ROI because
Yeah.
that's where profitability is. And I was watching our marketing program. It was very tactic heavy. They were extraordinary tacticians. But I found that if it was a weak marketing leader or a pure sales leader, the tacticians didn't do very well. The
Right.
leads weren't there, and there's this miscommunication. And I kept finding that if the marketing leads were great, our team was saying, we have all these leads. And the marketer leader would come on and be like, sales say they suck. And it's like, where's the source of truth? Like this, we can't have, this is a huge waste of time, energy, and resources. And that's when the nuggets started to like brew. It's like you need one person overseeing marketing and sales because marketing needs to generate good leads. Yes, that's part of their job, but salespeople have to sell them. Salespeople are getting really good information about what the marketers need to say. And if marketers aren't on the same page with salespeople, you just create this stupid tension and no
Mm.
accountability. And
Yeah.
so that was the kernel that started to brew. And I saw it over and over and over and over again. And then I looked at what we were doing and being really successful with. I was the one person overseeing both. And I had influence on operations, I had influence in marketing, and I was leading our sales. And I'm like, we just need to do this for all the small businesses we come across.
And that was where
So
the kernel of the idea came.
yeah, that's exactly that was I in all the traditional structures, and I love marketers, but generally they're egotistical about marketing. I do love them. I like to consider myself one, but they are. It's about how pretty it is and how vain and how, yes, it's more impressions, but it is meaningless from the dollars. And marketers generally don't like salespeople. Salespeople generally just berate the marketers. And I just like, we're spending all this limited amount of resource on this stupid problem. There's got to be a way to do this. And that's really when Next Level started to be built, is we got to do this a better way.
Amazing. Who is your ideal client?
I tend to think of it as B2B, but I would definitely say it's acts like B2B. It's generally a high ticket sale, some thousand plus or multiple $1,000 sale. I love monthly recurring revenue. Those are the like the model was designed for that. And it's usually this business where the visionary, the CEO, the owner is trying to get out of the marketing and sales seat. And they've maybe failed before. They've had frustrations with an agency before. They know there's a better way and they don't know how to figure it out. So that's like where we land. It's usually professional services. I'd be lying if I didn't say marketing agencies are great. I know where all the bodies are buried in marketing agencies and we do really well with people. So if you're like a recruitment firm or any kind of like talent acquisition or fractional talent, it works really well.
And how do you actually market to them?
So it's funny, I always talk about drinking our own champagne. So
Yes.
this is my like favorite thing in the world is like I use exactly the same stuff that I bring to my clients and I test it on me first. I'm a big believer in thought leadership. Big believer in thought leadership. I think B2B influencer is the way right now. It's why I want to get out of this business in the next 3 years because I don't want to figure out the next one. I'll be bored. I don't want to have to figure out what the next way to sell is. But generally, I spend a lot of time in the EOS community. I don't know if you're familiar with
Yeah.
EOS, but
Yeah. So it's
I spend a
entrepreneur
lot.
operating system.
Yep, written by it started as a book, Traction, written by Gino Wickman, and they do such a good job of building a good place to play, but there's no real source of truth for data in the marketing and sales scene. There's a lack of clarity on what that role needs to do. There's a lack of clarity on what kind of results. And so I take this really data heavy approach to and then a proof by concept. So podcasts is one, blogs, I do event marketing, I do referral groups, I have other biz dev projects I'm always playing with because I really deeply believe that the modern buyer journey is schmurgled with marketing and sales. And so sales looks like marketing looks like sales. And the buyer journey, 70% of the decision is made before they start the sales process. And so I talk about and I teach it to our teams and our CROs in my business. We need to be doing our message 7 times, 7 ways.
Right. And so from that, well, you're saying you drink your own Kool-Aid. So you do multiple different methods to get people at the top of the funnel.
Oh, yeah,
Repeat,
yeah. Oh,
repeat to me again which ones you actually use.
let me open this up just a little bit because this is a super salient point for this. Most people hear a stat, and I'm curious what you think it is, of how many times your brand needs to be seen before a buyer will get interested and buy.
Oh,
It's
they
the
always
number.
they used to say it was 7, but I would absolutely say it's between 15 and 20 now.
Do you know where the 7 came from? I actually
I don't, but it was
nobody does.
something that they gave in the sort of 90s or early noughties. It was like you need 7 touch points before people buy.
Yep, it's Dr. Jeffrey Lant is
Okay.
who did it. He still has a website. It's missing its SSL certificate. He does not look like he looks like he's seen some years.
Yes.
And so a lot of people have that 7 times. And then when I talk to any kind of marketer or salesperson, they usually say, well, it's more. And I would say, has the rate of change doubled in 30 years or is it exponential? And so I think it's 7 times, 7 ways. And so this is
7
where
times
my
7.
it's exponential. And the fancy marketing word is, but I really think it is not just marketing up funnel, it's sales up funnel. And so what I mean by that is I've gotten really clear on what my thought leadership pieces are. I've developed my 3 core pieces of IP. One of them is relevant to this. And then I am very active on LinkedIn. I just social posting multiple times a week. We do podcasts, so we benefit from podcasts. I do event marketing, so I sponsor events all the time. I do LinkedIn outreach. Now, I never do anything icky called like the bumping this to the top of your thread. I hate that. I just connect with people. No, with no exchange, just growing my influence and network. We haven't done cold email a lot recently, but I do believe in cold email. I need to try a different methodology because the ratios aren't very valid. I'll do networking groups. I have my nonprofit that I also consider part of my biz dev. What else are we doing? I do mind shares with some groups. Um, Yeah, it's this mix of marketing and sales. SEO is a huge tactic for us for sure. I haven't played a lot with paid media yet for us. Oh, my book is coming out. That's another piece of the puzzle. Yeah,
Wow, amazing.
referrals. So yeah, it seems like a lot of work, and it is, but it's usually a lot of work when you don't do one of our core pieces of the strategy, one of our IPs, and that helps us a lot because most people don't know what to say to do all
Yeah,
that work.
yeah. What are the common mistakes that B2B businesses make when they're looking to integrate effective marketing and sales?
First of all, they think of them as different entities. And so they put them in two different silos. I think that's a big mistake. The other is they look for shiny tactics and strategies without understanding their own numbers. So that's number two. These are always playing at the same time. They hire a marketing agency based on what the marketing agency says, not on what they're accountable to. And then they hire salespeople because salespeople get sales. And that's just not how it works anymore.
What does that mean? Salespeople don't make sales.
I joke, it's if most small businesses, the CEO, if it's a high ticket sale, right, multiple thousands per month, the CEO or senior executive will get involved in the sales process. Right. So
Right.
that buyer has to be involved. Does Sally, the biz dev rep, with her phone get in front of, does the CEO answer her phone call and listen for more than 5 seconds? 99.99% of the time, they do not. And so if you're just sending your salesperson to smile and dial with no strategy, with no thoughtfulness, with no education, with no executive presence, without understanding ROI, you're just making a lot of noise. You might get lucky, but lucky is not a strategy. The
Mm.
numbers game is not a strategy unless you have enough money to support that strategy over a very long time, which is not the people I work with. And so when I think about sales now, I think the best salespeople are educators. They're not trying
Interesting.
to get you on the hook. I just had a terrible sales pitch this morning. It was terrible. It was literally labeled a discovery call, and he talked for the first 5 minutes without asking a single question about my business.
Right.
That doesn't work anymore. I'm sure he's frustrated as all get out. So I'm like, you're not helping me. I need help.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's how sales is evolving. And that's why like LinkedIn posts and educating and helping people of
Yep.
their pain points is where sales is going towards, because people, there's the old fashions like razzle dazzle, like just tell them the features doesn't work in the way that it maybe did work previously.
Yeah, I drink from the well of Simon Sinek, and
Yeah.
there's a lot of cynics about Simon Sinek, but he talks about why, how, what, and I think that golden circle applied to sales.
Yeah.
He was a
Yeah.
marketer, and so marketers use it, but it's no, it needs to be applied to sales and marketing. And so that's one of the things we bring under the hood is I love Simon, and I would tell this to his face. It's like the why, how, what is great, but it's not very like tangible. So I
Mm.
built a tool reverse engineered from some of his ideas. I also brought in some of Don Miller's story brand because, again, brilliant concept, but hard to apply to a small business. So I have curated some tools that I help our clients with solve that messaging gap and stop talking about features and benefits. That's down here at the bottom rung. What is that business owner trying to solve for?
Yeah.
Like what in their
Fascinating.
heart?
So, as a fractional CRO, how do you balance the different levers that you need, which I think is being a strategist, being a coach, and being a hands-on leadership role for your clients?
I'm glad you said that because that's why I still have my coaching swag. Because when I started this business, I used the term coaching because I felt like I constantly had to teach and educate just as much as be the strategy and the doer. The best part of what I think we've been able to accomplish at Next Level is we have the methodology. You're not when you're hiring one of our CROs, you're not just hiring a really experienced human and a strong executive. You're also getting this methodology that I've been battle testing and proving over and over again. And when you have that kind of clarity of methodology and metrics with a great brain, you create the capacity for some doing too. And so I joke that a lot of our work, because we're not dealing with $50 million businesses that like $10,000 is a drop in the bucket. We're talking about where $10,000 is like maybe the profit for the whole company in a month. That's what we're talking about. So we often talk about it as duct tape and popsicle sticks. Now, the
Right.
best part is the strategy's there because you've got the right brain. The
Yeah.
how is there because we've got the formula, and that leaves enough room to do some of this stuff without being, I would call it like a deck warrior, where it's here's my fancy deck, go do all the things I just told you to do. So, no, we're going to get in this together because think back, I'm an only child. I always had to play by myself. And then I'm used to these entrepreneurial companies where it was like everybody's running full speed and wearing four hats, and it doesn't matter who you don't have anybody to turn to and be like, can you do that for me? So I think that's the gritty people that I try and attract at the CRO level, who love the work with these guys, with these business owners who want to do something greater but don't know how, and have probably failed and are hurt from it still.
Mm. How do you think you've evolved as a leader?
Rude awakening. Rude awakening. No, I've gotten so lucky with some incredible mentors that just held a mirror up to my face and was like, did you notice that? Did you actually see the broccoli in your teeth? And so it started back at the lab, right? I wasn't going to show up as a 23-year-old smart college kid and get these 20-year grizzled blue collar veterans to come do my song and dance. It wasn't just going to happen. So I had to be thoughtful. I didn't have a choice but to be thoughtful. In the karate school, we started with, it was me, another young lady, and the owner. And we ended with about 27 team members by the end. We had to scale up pretty quick. So I had to figure out how to be really precise. And that's really hard for me because I like to ramble. So I had to figure that out. We got access to some really cool communication tools that the owner invested in. And that was not an easy investment either. And there was an evolution there in just being more aware of the words I use and the power of those words and how precise I had to be at scale. And then reproducing that in a business setting. And it is different than an entrepreneurial setting. So this business entrepreneurial. And now as a leader, I stick to my values. I stick to my communication. And then I try and get the mirror in front of me as often as I can from everybody I can talk to. So it's tell me what I want to know, I want to see the other side of me. And I think that really cuts through a lot of the noise of leadership. If you can create
Mm.
that environment, people tell you the truth, and all progress starts with truth.
So, how do you work on culture within your business?
Absolute authenticity and open. Yeah, I'm too thick. Like my brain isn't big enough to hold lying and nuance and subtlety. So it's just, no, we're gonna bulldoze all that and just, can you just say it? Whatever it is, just say it. You won't hurt me. I'm not gonna cry. Just tell me. And I think I just do that enough that that's the expectation. And it becomes really obvious when someone doesn't fit in that mold. And I think that's what I like, is making it so obvious when something doesn't fit. And I
Mm.
think that's how I start to measure. And again, do we have all the answers? Gosh, no. My gosh, no. I'm learning every day. I learned even this morning, right? We had a meeting with a team to get on the same page about communication. And I was like, one, have we said all the things that need to be said, is what I said to the team. Because one thing I don't do is I don't have this conversation again. Just open and honest, I'm not going to have this conversation again, because then we're not being serious about who we want to be when we grow up and as we grow up. So I think that's simple.
Mm.
Like,
No,
say what you said. We're not
no,
going to talk about it. We're not going to have
no,
this same conversation.
it's incredible. I think it's like culture is such a hard thing to do in companies, especially the larger they grow. So simplicity and keeping true to your values, I think, is incredibly important. What's the plan for the next 2 to 5 years?
When I started this business, I had started to realize I have this 3-year thing where every 3 years I need to evolve, because then I get stuck in the grind. And so I started with, I'm going to sell it in 3 years. That was it. So build it to sell, which is a really cool way. And think about how many times you've probably heard from me is build with the end in mind. When you build with the end in mind, you make better decisions, I think. Really hard. So any business owner out there, I know how hard it is to sit there with a blank sheet of paper and be like, so where do I want this thing to end up? But I said sell because I knew I would get bored when I cracked the code. I have a mentor, a coach, And I think he's finally walked me off of that. And so the new North Star over the next year and a half, 2 years, is to move fully into an owner's box. Completely step out of the business, but still own the business and put a new CEO in front.
Right.
And that felt like a way different challenge. Like I think I
Mm.
could sell it, but is that really going to get me where I want to go? This allows me to keep my IP. I can license the IP and continue to generate revenue off of it and save a one-time cash hit, and I don't have to be there. It's great. It seems way better. I think the short answer is get in the owner's box and then license my IP.
Amazing. Amazing. Look, we're coming to the end of the interview. I'll ask the same 6 questions to all of my guests. So quick fire questions. They don't need a quick fire answer. The first question is, what's the best decision that you've made?
Listening to my wife and trusting her, because I am happier, healthier. We are happier and healthier. And I'll just bend into a second part of the answer. We do
Sure.
a family planning together. And so what that looks like is every year we go away and we talk about our future. We get really clear on it and we look at the year plan. So we set it, our future vision, and then we work backwards to 3 years from now, 1 year from now, and then we get into the quarterly world. We have a scorecard for our family. Like I know our metrics and how much noise that eliminates, how much tension and stress that eliminates. And I get to be really open and honest. She gets to be really open and honest. And I think us starting that is woven into me listening to her. And we weren't going to get to our big goals without me starting this business because I was never going to get there working for someone else. And
Yeah.
so all these pieces start to blend together. So the best decision I ever made, listen to my wife.
Great. What's the best piece of advice you've been given?
It's funny because it's going to sound like the same answer, but I have this super special mentor to me. His name's Eric. He really helped me break out of the I'm just a karate guy. I respect him and admire him deeply. I get to have dinner with him next Monday, so I'm really excited about that. And right when I was just getting into the karate world and I was starting to get frustrated with kind of this ceiling of I want to go faster, but the owner doesn't want to go as fast as I want to go. We can do more. We can do this great thing. We can change a lot of kids' lives. He started to tell me that I needed to go on my own. And I joke now that it took me 3 years to listen to him. And I joke with him now that it's my only goal in life to shorten that cycle time of listening to him from
Yeah.
3 years to a year. And he just keeps being right. And so I think the best advice I've ever gotten is from him. And I think it's you got to find those people who have your best interest and listen to them. And so I don't think he would ever say that because he's don't listen to me. I'm not the smartest guy in the room, but that's the person I want to listen to though. You know what I mean? I want that advice.
Yeah. Who's the person beyond him, or maybe it is him, who's helped you most in your career?
There's too many people here. I will just be totally maybe yeah. Obviously, the question is pick one, and I won't. So sorry, I'm a little contrarian. I just think about all the different shapes and all the different things that I do and how I interact. I think about the lab manager or my boss at my lab who gave this 23-year-old the reins and was like, and let me just do it. Do you know what kind of guts that takes?
Mm.
It's pretty bold. And so if he hadn't done that and he had micromanaged me, what would have happened?
Mm.
The karate school owner, he basically said, I'm not going to make any money to try and figure this out with this kid. That took guts.
Mm.
And he opened the door to understanding entrepreneurial businesses. He taught me sales. He taught me as much as he could marketing, a lot of trust. And then I had Eric. And then when I got to the agency, I really learned marketing and sales at a really high level. So lots of respect there. I got introduced to Giant from their COO. And just like all these ideas I didn't feel like I was an idiot for all the ideas I had. He had a much different variation of them. But it was like, oh, somebody else thinks like I think. And that was a blessing. And now I've got I've gotten close with my EOS implementer and as a coach, and just his shaping on what it looks like to exit my business has been remarkable. And him helping me guide to getting my full-time number 2 leader, my full-time integrator, has been magical because he just held up the mirror. So what's your number one problem? And I talked and he just listened. And I got there myself, and that's really hard to do. I really respect coaches like that who
Amazing.
figure it out for yourself and not feel stupid.
Yeah. Amazing. Sounds like you've had some massive influences over your years.
Yeah.
Next question. Tell me about a regret that you have.
Oh, yeah. It's right on the edge of a regret. It really was the catalyst for next level. So I have been able to look at it now more often as a gift than a regret. But if I'm completely honest, it's still, there's this, it's like a thorn of shoulda, woulda, coulda. And I talk about it in my book, and I'm trying to not name drop, but when I was thinking about leaving the agency, I started looking for COO type jobs because I thought that was what my real special gift was. And I assumed that I had to follow someone else in order to get where I wanted to go. And I'll leave it at this. He's a very famous, like most people in the business world would absolutely instantly know his name, human kind of in the sales realm area. I'm trying not to name drop, so I'm just walking on the edge here, who was looking for a number two like me, like that I
Right.
wanted to be. I had none of the pedigree, but somehow I made it through 200 applicants because obviously this was a pretty high profile gig. And I was in the final running. And so I got to spend time with it. He's a genius. He is just as smart and as intimidating as it seems like. And I made it through, and I was one of the final two candidates. And I'm on the last interview. Um, and the kind of the I was talking to his son. I was the inside baseball was that like this guy liked me, but there was concern I wasn't strong enough for him. I'm like, I'm strong enough. But I walk in, and my fear of not getting the job, the scarcity mindset that I was brewing on, took over. And during the interview, something was said that felt the final interview, something was said from him that like I knew felt off. And I just remember a flick of my brain to like attack that, like challenge the heck out of that. That was way out of, that was weird. What was that? But I didn't.
Mm.
And then the interview ended. And then obviously I didn't get that job. And I've never confirmed it. And I think someday I'll be able to, because like my circles are close to touching like that group again. And I'll probably find out that's exactly what the issue was. But that's what I've told myself because I wasn't authentic. I didn't tell my whole truth. And it's funny because you just heard me say, we're going to just tell it like it is.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
that's right in the edge of the regret. Do I think I would have enjoyed that job? No. Do I think I'm on the right path? Yes. Do
Good.
I look back and go, yes.
Ah, interesting. Maybe when we finish recording, you'll tell me who it was.
I will for sure tell you. Yeah.
Perfect. Next question is, what are you most proud of?
It's funny because now I run a business that I'm absolutely 100% authentic about. If I can help you, I can say yes. If my system works for you, I can say yes without reservation. And that, it feels really good to say that. I didn't always
Mm,
feel that at the agency. In the karate school, I wasn't able to say that to my team members who wanted a career in martial arts because I knew the ceiling had been capped.
mm.
And they wanted to help more kids. And so now it's sky's the limit because I believe it. And so I am 100% authentic with it. And because I'm not feeling like I'm not myself, I'm 100% authentic at home too. Like I don't take the mask off and become someone else when I come home. I'm just me. Ooh. And I know that is really hard for people to say and get the opportunity to say. So it is pride and gratitude because my gosh, I'm very lucky.
This isn't one of the questions, but I want to explore this idea of authenticity, speaking plainly. Is has there been other occasions after that example you gave with the job interview where you've struggled to be authentic, where you've struggled to tell your mind, say your mind?
Of
And was
course.
this something that you
Of
struggled
course.
with, or was there
Of
a
course.
moment where you just switched, you went, there's no more BS, I'm just telling people how it is?
Course, like I would just say it, otherwise it'd be a bold-faced lie. No, like, yeah, I've wanted to win a deal. Yeah, I've wanted to land an opportunity. Yeah, I've wanted to paint a rosier picture than it probably deserved. Of course, I've felt that itch. Um, and yeah, thankfully the thorn is deep enough in
Right.
that it like fires. And I usually get out of it and get back to authenticity. And so I'll say that with one of the most exciting opportunities that I get to be a part of, like I'm working with some logos that I'm really proud of, and that I'm just really proud of. Like I love, like, I want to boast about them, and I didn't get that opportunity because I yielded my process. I think I ended up earning the most trust because I wanted to yield the process to get that chance. But I'm
Yeah.
like, no, if we're going to work together, we're going to do it exactly on my, like, how I do things, or it's
Yeah.
not going to happen. And that's one of my best success stories now. So it's
Amazing.
funny how just sticking to your guns, as hard as it is the
Is the
way.
right way. Exactly. Tell me something about you that most people don't know about.
I don't know. You heard it all. Like you would, yeah. I've just stopped apologizing for my exuberance and my enthusiasm, and I let it go now. And I know I turn off probably 30% of the population. Somebody is not listening to this. Can this guy not be like that? And it's like, nope, I can't. And normally the Midwest nice and we would say, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I think, and I'm not. But
Kyle, honestly, from my perspective, I love the energy. I love the energy. Like it's infectious. I want to hear more of what you're saying. Yeah, there is an element of that you are going to switch people off, but I don't actually think that's a bad thing because you're switching off the
oh,
people that aren't going to
they don't
connect with
want it.
you, aren't going to be interested in working
Don't
with
want
you.
it.
So
And
yeah,
yeah, I made my peace with that. Yeah, and this doesn't change. Like you find me at Monday at 8 o'clock, you find me at Friday at 4 p.m., you find me at Saturday at noon. It's the same guy. It's yes, it goes on nonstop. And I was trying to explain it to other people. I connect deeply with Hamilton, which is such an odd but like the character Hamilton from the
right.
play
Yeah,
is who I like. I'm like, I'm not gonna not take my shot. I'm running out of time. I feel it in my bones, so I'm just gonna go. You only get one chance at this little journey,
yeah,
so you might as
true,
well go all out.
true. And what does legacy mean to you?
Oh my gosh, that's so funny. This journey my wife and I have been on. And I'm going to go backwards, go forwards. Sorry, I always do this. When we first started our family planning, our annual planning, we wrote, and I think everybody should do this, and this is I'm connecting it to what I think my legacy might be. We wrote 25 years from the day we started this, that really cheesy Christmas letter that people send. And I'm not marking, I love people's Christmas letters, I read them, but they're always like just low key little humble brag in there of what they're up to.
Yeah,
And so we wrote our humble brag letter. We don't ever send a letter, but we wrote ours and I'm like, we're going to let all the rules are off. We're never going to show this to anybody, but it's, yes, we just got back from our trip to Mexico for 3 weeks. We're coming back to our boat house, our lake house, like really stupid stuff like that. And so we wrote that, and it was 25 years. And in the 5 years we've been doing this planning, that 25 year, we did start with the end in mind. We did all the math of what that would cost to live
yeah,
like that.
yeah.
It became 15 year, and now it's become 5 year
Wow.
from now. And we might be able to get it to it in 3 years from where we are today.
All right.
And that's pretty mind blowing. And I looked at my wife and I go, and here's the genuine authenticity. We're going to get bored in that life. Certainly I am. So what are we going to do after? And so we actually started talking about legacy. And so I think one of the legacies I want to bring, obviously I've built this IP with Next Level. Obviously I have my family, but I think about legacy as like work and the transfer of knowledge. And so I think my wife and I have done something really beautiful with this family planning. And I believe more people deserve to have access to it. And so my legacy keeps coming back to bringing like I've gotten these incredible mentors and gifts. Like I want to bring that to as many people as I can. And so it's transferring all this knowledge and making it super approachable.
Amazing. And lastly, where can people find you if they want to find out more about you or your business?
If they're ready, and I do say ready because I'm a lot to handle, you can go to readyforthenextlevel.com if you're serious, not just sincere. And we'll talk about what marketing and sales looks like for you. So readyforthenextlevel.com, or I would love to have your, network on LinkedIn because that is definitely one of my growth levers.
Amazing. Thank you, Cole. Thank you so much for sharing your authenticity. I absolutely love it. You've been an absolute pleasure speaking to and sharing some of your insights has been amazing. Thanks, Carl.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
I really hope you've enjoyed that content. It's a really fascinating interview that I've done there. So please do, if you are enjoying this content, please do give it a like. Please do give a subscribe. It'd be really good to boost the subscriptions. It really makes a difference to the algorithm in YouTube. So thank you for that. If you do hit subscribe, hit the bell icon and you'll get all of the content. You'll get notified when all the content is available. Thank you so much for your time. It's really appreciated. Thanks a lot.